okay.
You okay?
Yeah.
Are you okay?
It's my fault. My fault.
Okay. Are you
okay.
okay?
I'm good.
I'm
Yeah.
okay.
No, we're good. We're good.
I'm okay. Sorry.
We'll get back to this guy in detail in a minute. Right now, let's go out to the airport. Getting a lot of questions about the collision in Pearland, Texas, the Grumman versus the Cessna, after the Grumman apparently suffered some sort of an electrical failure and did a panic return to the airport and ended up crashing into the airplane right in front of him. This video appears to highlight a fundamental misunderstanding of some very basic systems knowledge on how these aircraft operate. My name's Juan Brown, you're watching the BLANCOLIRIO channel, and this video is brought to you by the folks that support this channel over here on Patreon. Thank you for your support. When we bring young folks in here to learn about aviation through projects like this RV-12 or give them a demonstration ride in the Husky, they have no idea how these aircraft systems work. But we supposedly have a very robust training system in order to get a pilot qualified to earn his private pilot's license, which requires a fundamental knowledge of the systems on board these aircraft. Because when you first start learning to fly, you are drawing from a bag of knowledge. You need a large bag of fundamental knowledge from which you will gain experience. As you get older and farther along in your flying career, you start drawing from your rather large bag of experience to keep you out of trouble, and some of your knowledge kind of tends to leak out over the years, as in my case, and that's one of the important things that I like to emphasize on the BLANCOLIRIO channel, is that keeps me in the books as well and keeps me abreast as to what's going on in aviation. But there seems to me to be a fundamental misunderstanding of some basic aircraft systems that we need to review right now. This is Rick's 1978 Grumman AA5B Tiger, which means he's got the 180 horse Lycoming engine, as opposed to the Cheetah, which had the 150 horse Lycoming engine. Let's check it out. A conventional 4-place fixed gear, fixed pitch prop, yielding about a cruise speed of about 150 miles an hour. Nice clean design. This is the owner, Rick, here, an old friend of mine at the airport. What did you say about that video? You just go ahead and land and crash.
Let's go ahead and land and crash into the guy.
Great.
Whatever, you know?
This is Rick's 1978 Grumman. Which model did you call this, Rick? The
AA5B.
AA5B, powered by the Lycoming 0360 180 horse engine. Just very similar to the accident aircraft, same format here as the accident aircraft. So starting from left to right, we have the airspeed indicator that's driven by the pitot-static system, the artificial horizon, which is powered by a engine-driven vacuum pump. We have the directional gyro, which is also powered by the engine-driven vacuum pump, an altimeter, which works off of the static system, part of the pitot-static system, a vertical speed indicator, which works off of the static system, and a turn coordinator, which is, in fact, an electric instrument. At least this portion of the turn coordinator is electric, and this, of course, is just your coordinator itself, which is just a plumb bob, carpenter's level to determine coordinated flight. That requires no electricity at all. So out of these instruments, they're all going to work just fine without electricity, with the exception of this turn coordinator here. A couple of navigation instruments, VOR, ILS. Now your gauges, when you turn the master switch, well, here, let's turn it on. The gauges operate and indicate normally, including your fuel gauges down here. But when you turn the master switch off, the fuel gauges should slowly die. AC lies, DC dies. Besides the radios and avionics, the only other electrically actuated things that you want is the fuel boost pump for takeoff or landing, but that's only If in the event the engine-driven boost pump fails, then you have a backup electric boost pump because it's a low-wing aircraft and you don't have the gravity feed head pressure on the carburetor. So fuel pump on for takeoff and landing, but if the electrical system fails, no problem. The engine-driven fuel pump is going to continue to deliver fuel to the engine. And then, of course, the flaps on the Grumman are, in fact, electric, but making a no-flap landing is no problem. So here's your basic 0360, 180 horsepower, carbureted Lycoming engine powered by a pair of magnetos. It's these two magnetos mounted in the back of the aircraft that provide the spark, the independent spark for the spark plugs. And of course, aircraft have redundant ignition, a set of spark plugs, 2 spark plugs for each cylinder. And there's the right mag over there. Let's take a look at that. Now here on the right mag in Rick's Grumman, he's got a Surefly electronic magneto. And even though this magneto is electronic, gives him better starting and better fuel economy overall, it has an independent source of 12-volt power to operate this electronic magneto. The old magneto on the left side is just a magnet running through a field and provides its own independent spark inside the magneto itself. Here's the engine-driven vacuum pump that drives your gyro instruments, the artificial horizon and the directional gyro, and it's called a dry pump because it doesn't have oil running through it. And there's the plumbing to run the gyros. Just runs a air suction air over the gyros, spins them up really fast, and allows the gyros to operate. Engine-driven vacuum pump. No electricity required. Down here in the back of the accessory section is the engine-driven fuel pump. No electricity required. And over here is your electric backup fuel boost pump located right here. And that's the switch that you turn on and off in the cockpit, and you run that electric-driven fuel boost pump for takeoff and landing, just in case that engine-driven fuel pump, which looks like an old Chevy pump, fails. But they are very reliable. And again, that's because of the low wing configuration of the Grumman. You don't have a lot of gravity head pressure on your fuel tanks like you would on a high wing airplane to provide the correct amount of pressure that you need for the carburetor. This is your spin-on oil filter. You want to change that about every 50 hours, and there's your oil cooler right there. And this is your high-speed Lopresti cowling. Taking the intake air here, running it over the fins here. That's why it's kind of boxed in with this baffling, and then that drives the air down through the fins, and the air exhausts out back here and departs. Where does it depart, Rick? Out in the bottom there? Down through there. Down here around the nose gear. That's where the cooling air exhausts out of. Okay, we made sure the tow bar is off of this thing. Rick's going to fire this thing up and demonstrate.
Very proud.
So do you have a voltmeter over here? Not really, just a chronometer. Radio master on. And
I got volts here.
Got volts here. And you got amps here. So right after you start, you want to check that amp meter. I'll tell you another story here in a minute about that. Make sure that thing should be pulling a pretty good charge right after you start the engine. Now you're already warmed up here, so let's take it up to a little higher RPM there. Give us a little mag check, say like at 1,000 or 1,200 RPM. Oh, you got the digital tack now. Wow. All right. You're behind us. Okay, now check the mags. So 90 RPM drop. 100 RPM drop. Okay, now leave it right there at that RPM. Leave it right up there. Now shut the master off. And the engine continues to operate just fine. All right, thanks, Rick, for showing us your airplane.
No problem.